It's Nina.
Surprise!
Good to see you.
You knew I was coming. Good to see you
Of
too.
course I did.
Did you have a great Christmas?
Well, I had to, yes. I just love that, there's always a little bit of drama in any family, but the fact that we gather together and
Mhm,
enjoy one another's presence and, the pressure of getting gifts and stuff. And there's always, oh, did I get the right thing or et cetera,
mhm,
you know, uh, trying to put our history behind us and enjoy the moment. And this
mhm.
Christmas was one of the best Christmases ever, right? And it's just, I have three kids and my wife, and we always, and I was thinking about that this year. I don't think we've ever had a Christmas where it wasn't the five of us. Uh, I think we've made it every year
So
from
far.
yeah, so far. Hallelujah. And
Yeah.
you, how was your Christmas?
Oh, it was great. It was great. I got to be at my son's house and be with 6 of my grandkids.
Wow.
Yeah. So that
So
was tremendous.
how many were gathered together? I mean, you have six, well, you have more than six grandkids, but you had six of
Right.
them there. How many people were there all together?
Oh goodness. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm trying to make sure I count right. I think there was 14
So a
altogether.
house full. So a house
Yeah,
full.
13 or 14, yeah, a house and a dog, a very
And
big dog.
that counts.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely counts. He was
Dogs
big
count.
enough to be his own person for
All
sure.
right. And involved and in the mix. Did the dog get anything for Christmas?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, okay, good.
yeah. He got 2 things that he couldn't decide which one he liked better. He was trying to carry both of them in his mouth at one time.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah,
Merry Christmas. Good to see you. And
thank
early Happy
you.
New Year.
Thank you, the same to you.
Okay.
You have a
So
great one.
I got to pick the topic today, or
Mhm.
producer Nina reached out and said, "What's the topic?" So I meditated and I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw this out there. How do you like, what do you think? What do you think of the topic? I'm going to hand it over to you and let you
Oh,
riff.
and let me wax
Yes.
eloquent?
Wax eloquent.
You're hoping.
We'll see.
I'll wax eloquent.
Well, you,
All
you,
right.
you do
So
well.
you introduce the topic, and then I'll respond to that. How about that?
Okay. Now, the reason I picked this topic is it's been on my mind a lot.
Mhm.
I think it's something. Well, it's there's dispute as to whether such a thing can even exist, right? A Christian nation. Is there even such a thing, right? And so it's like, well, what does it mean? If we can define what it means, maybe we can answer that question. If there can be such a thing, and is it God's will? Is it something that God designed? Is it? So it's. I think it's very important because in my Bible study and in my mm, life and meditating on the meaning of life and what it's all about, we
Mhm.
understand that Jesus came to bring salvation for every individual. But
Mhm.
there's more than just individual human. The human experience is not just an individual experience. It's
Mhm.
families, and then there are groups, and we organize ourselves in different ways. And there's churches, and then there's cities and nations, right? All these different.
Mhm.
There's Girl Scout troops, and there's Rotary clubs, and right, humans interact with one another, and so there's more to this life than just me and Jesus. There's us
Right.
and Jesus, and so. It's a hotly debated topic, and so I figured you'd probably have a good take on it. I trust your. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll
Maybe
be
we'll be miles
divided.
apart. I don't know. So I did a little research on this myself. Um, and of course, there's several definitions out in the world of what a Christian nation is. The conclusion I came to is that um, if you go with one of those definitions, then yes, one, maybe several exist in the world, but it's not those definitions that count. It's only God's definition of what a Christian nation is. And even if there is one, when, if there is one now, I'll be frank, by what I suspect his definition is, I doubt there is one. Will there be one in the future? Yes, when Christ comes to reign on the earth, there definitely will be. And of his government, there shall be no end. So, but let's go back to the world's definitions, because I suspect that's what we're really talking about here. So, one possibility is that a nation has been founded and it's expressly stated in their constitution or their government governing documents that they are a Christian nation, that they look to God for their direction and guidance, and there is a church state. Pardon me, a state church. That's what I should have said. So England is in that position. Okay. The United States is not. And I would add, I thank God we aren't. You could call a nation a Christian nation if maybe the majority of their people profess to be Christians. So even if it's not in their founding documents, the people supposedly who are Christ followers in the nation make up the majority. And I'm not talking 51% there. I'm talking there are some places, as you know, in Armenia where it is well over, well, it used to be over 90%. And now it's probably closer to 75, 76, something like that. And unfortunately shrinking every day. So that's another definition. And then, of course, there's the definition of, well, it's a Christian nation because it was founded on Christian principles. But if you could make that case, then it's only still a Christian nation, only insofar as it continues to follow those principles. And when it ceases to do so, it is no longer a Christian nation. So there's my take on that.
Good. Well, there's 1,000 directions to go that I want to go in.
Okay.
So I did a little research, quote unquote research. I've been meditating on this for a while. And so this is something a couple of years ago that I was curious about and meditating on. So in Matthew 28 verses, you know what I'm gonna. What's the famous?
I do. Go for it.
All right, we should all know
the Great Commission.
The Great Commission, right?
Yeah.
And that's, well, what is the Great Commission? There's this. I don't remember what it's called, but there's a legally recognized principle that happens before a person dies, right? Before a person dies, their last words, there's a legal definition for it. I forget exactly what it is, but a person's last words before they die is considered in a courtroom to be extremely powerful evidence, or if they're saying something. For example, if somebody is killed and somebody gets to them before they die, their last words are regarded very, very highly, and a lot of people have been convicted on the testimony of the dying person. But that holds across the board. Like if a person is aware that they're dying or aware that they will not be able to speak again, then the last thing they say should be held with extremely high regard. And I say all this because Jesus had last words, right? Of course,
right.
He appeared to John, to give him the revelation, and he appeared to Paul, and so after his ascension. So I'm talking about this.
Yeah, and he's still speaking now,
right? And he still speaks. But the last words his disciples heard from him physically before the ascension are the Great Commission. Those are his last words, Jesus' final words. And so he's saying something very, very important, right? This is extremely important. We as Christians generally, should regard this very highly. So, and I don't have it right in front of me, but
I'm about to.
Okay, good. When you get to it, read it, because I'm going to read a commentary on it, a brief commentary portion once you get to it.
All right. So this is from the American Standard Bible. Oops, pardon me, I'm about to lose it again. Okay. Go ye therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them into the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world.
Excellent. So, what do we have
Oh,
there?
pardon me. I left something out. Let me back up.
Sure.
Can I back up? Because
Yes,
I
yes.
left out maybe one of the most important parts, the verse before. And Jesus came to them and spake unto them, saying, all authority hath been given unto me in heaven and on earth. Go ye therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them into the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world.
Okay. Is that 19 and 20 or sorry. Is that 18, 19 and 20 or is that 19
That's
and 20?
18, 19, and 20.
So when you backed up, you
And
read
Matthew
18.
28. Yes.
Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Excellent. Thank you for backing up because that is critical to this. That's kind of
That is.
the warm up, the tip off, so
Mhm.
all authority is given to me. That's why he says, all authority is given to me, therefore go. Right. And it's like,
Mhm.
wait, what? All authority has been given me, therefore go, because we are the body of Christ, right? He's saying,
Right.
I'm going away so that you guys can take over. Right. He's like, I'm going away. It's now up to you guys to do this. All authority has been given to me. I commission you. Great commission. You have that
Right.
authority. All authority that
Right.
is mine is yours. Right.
Mhm.
Just like a person who's deputized has all the authority of the sheriff. Right. A person who's like the Secretary of State represents the United States has the authority of the president outside of the United States, right?
Right.
You have been given this authority. So all authority is ours. Jesus says all authority is yours. Now go. Or is mine. Now go. And quick to point out here, and this is something that I recently learned. So every time we come to this, I try to point this out. There's 4 uses of the word all, and it's the same in the Greek, right? The Septuagint or whatever. In the original language, it's the same word used 4 times in these three verses. All authority, go to all nations, teaching them to obey all that I have commanded you, and I am with you always. Right? Same
Yes.
word. Yeah, I
Yes.
have all authority, go to all nations, teaching them to obey everything, all, and I am with you always. So this authority of mine is in you, and I am always in you. Right? So that's beautiful. He's like getting the point across to them, but he's talking about nations, right? And so the thing that I got hung up on almost a decade ago is that word of, right? Make disciples of all nations. So I went into a Christian bookstore, not your average Christian bookstore, but one that has, volumes and volumes of good, deep theology and commentaries, et cetera, et cetera. And so I went to every commentary I could find in the bookstores, like 4 or 5 different commentaries on the book of Matthew, going straight to this. And I'm telling you, 4 out of 5 of those commentaries didn't say much here. It really didn't say much. But the tried and true Matthew Henry commentary, which I'd heard of before and I had spent much time in it, but this is what I'm reading from, and it's online. So, well, it's a more condensed version that's online because it's pretty thick volume. But here,
Thick volume. Matthew Henry could go on for volumes. Yeah,
right, and
many
it
volumes.
is volumes and
Yeah.
volumes and volumes. So this is. I'm going to narrow in so I don't sit here reading too much. Sorry. How far his commission is extended. All right, this is a section. How far his commission is extended to all nations, in or in italics, all nations. Go and disciple all nations. Not that they must go all together. In other words, they don't all have to go as a group together, but by consent, disperse themselves in such a manner as might be best diffuse the light of the gospel. Sorry, scrolling down. That was okay. So now they were sent to all nations. That salvation by Christ should be offered to all and none excluded, et cetera, et cetera. Come on. Where is it? That Christianity, here it is. what's the point? What makes a Christian nation, right? That's the question here. What is a Christian nation, right? Going
Mhm.
to the nations, he says that Christianity should be twisted in with national constitutions, that the kingdoms of the world should become Christ's kingdoms, and their kings, the
Mhm.
church's nursing fathers. What is the principal intent of this commission? To disciple all nations. And he translates the word, admit them disciples. Do your utmost to make the nations Christian nations, not go to the nations and denounce the judgments of God against them as Jonah against Nineveh and as the other Old Testament prophets, though they have reason enough to expect it for their wickedness, but go and disciple them. Christ the mediator is sent has Christ the mediator is setting up a kingdom in the world. Bring the nations to be his subjects. Set up a school. Bring the nations to be his scholars, raising an army for the carrying on of the war against the powers of darkness, enlist the nations of the earth under his banner. The work which the apostles had to do was to set up the Christian religion in all places, and it was honorable work. And it goes on and on. But so this this is the interpretation or the meaning, the
Mhm.
implicit meaning of the Great Commission is go to the nations and convert the nations, right? And this is where
Mhm.
what I was getting at, where Jesus came to bring individual salvation to everybody who accepts him. But then he sent the disciples to the nations, the corporate bodies. And Jesus even said, greater things you will do. Wait a minute, you're God. Like you're
Mhm.
the hypostatic union. You're the God man. There's no one like you. There's nobody that can do what you do. How can you say we're going to do greater things? Well, he has commissioned us to do
Mhm.
something greater. He had a lifespan, an eternal lifespan, but he had
Mhm.
a time to be in our presence. This is God's design, right? I'm going to come, I'm going to incarnate, and then I'm going to die and resurrect and ascend. That's his plan, right? He says, I'm going to do that, be there physically for them, but only to show them the power that I'm giving to them, right? My
Right.
actual plan. And you're going to do greater things. You're going to convert nations into disciples. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay. Well, that kind of puts a different spin on things. So in my research, and this is kind of I was researching this and studying this before I even discovered like Armenia being the first Christian nation. There's another reason this topic is
Mhm.
on my mind. It's like
Mhm.
I've been working with Georgetown historians, right? Secular historians, and they use the phrase first Christian nation, right? Secular historians use the phrase first Christian nation. I'm like, well, they acknowledge that there is such a thing as a Christian nation. What does that mean? And so Armenia has its origin story when it converted from paganism to Christianity as a nation.
Mhm.
And so obviously it can be abused, like you mentioned the United Kingdom, right? The reason the founding
Mhm.
fathers or generations before the founding fathers in our nation, they fled the abuse, the misuse or the misunderstanding of Christian nation, right? The king became the religious authority, right? That's
Mhm.
not what a Christian nation says. It doesn't say the king is also now the voice of God, right? That's not
Right.
what
Right.
Jesus is talking about. It's taking that idea and perverting it and corrupting it.
Mhm.
But then, is there such a thing as a Christian nation if it's corrupted, right?
Well, and of course, we could make the case that every nation is corrupted because the people in it are corrupted. However, having said that, one of the reasons I said before, I'm so grateful that we are not set up like England is.
Mhm.
Because anywhere there is a state church, that may sound like a great thing, but anywhere there's a state church, then the church cannot be and will not be the conscience for the government. The church will end up being so knitted together with the government that
Compromised.
they
Yeah.
will compromise, and
Mhm.
they will no longer be Christian. They will no longer be Christ's nation. So now having said that, I'm thinking obviously about America because this is where I live.
Right.
I have the question then, are we a Christian nation? Were we ever a Christian nation? And there's no question that our founding fathers intended that we should be seen as a Christian nation. They said, this we set up this government to govern Christian people. It's wholly inadequate for anyone else, because they realized that only as Christ reigns in the hearts of the people is any law going to be adequate to govern them. But
Right.
then there was also added to that, what was his name? Joseph Story, I think, who is considered the father of judicial jurisprudence.
Hmm.
Okay. And way back in at the founding of our American government, he was already saying, this is a Christian nation. He was calling it a Christian nation. He was on the Supreme Court, and he was calling it a Christian nation. So there is evidence there that we, at least at one time, had been a Christian nation, that we were intended to be a Christian nation. But how far have we fallen? The
Right.
church in America is no longer salt and light. The church in America has become so weak and so diffused, and has so capitulated to the ideas of the day and anything that they feel might lead to persecution, of which I think they are very afraid, that they have not been a witness to the nations, to any nation, certainly not to this one, and not to others either.
All extremely important points. And that's why I knew discussing this with you would be, because it's an important subject, and we forget history, and we look at just where we are right now and what's going on right now, and we look at how could we be a Christian nation that massacres its own children, right? How could a Christian nation offer its children up to Molech, right? I mean,
Yes. Yes.
what Planned Parenthood does is the same thing that those pagan priests did to Molech, right? They took those,
and with government sanction,
with government funding.
Yes. Yes.
With the power of the government saying, go
Yes.
worship the pagan god by massacring your unborn, your most innocent. It's like, okay, how can we call ourselves a Christian nation, right? And when we have the Old Testament, look at the Israelites, right, that kept doing that, right? That was the nation of God that kept prostituting itself to the foreign gods, and that's where we are. Nevertheless, they were still called Israel, right? Still called God's chosen, right? The remnant, like, think of how gracious God planned to be to Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Sodom and Gomorrah, city of, I don't know, historians will say several thousands of people, maybe 30 to 100,000 people, whatever. And God would have spared them if they found 10 believers, right? Only 10 out of thousands and thousands and thousands, right? And so, the founding fathers and the founding documents, the Constitution, there's scholarship from that era that says that this only works if we acknowledge we are a Christian nation. This Constitution is designed for people that acknowledge moral law is something God has given us. It's something that comes from God, that ultimately comes from God. I was just watching a video yesterday where was it the police or the court? Oh, they were swearing an oath, right? A police officer was taking an official statement from a witness to a crime. In the very end of right before they start the interview, these things are fact, blah, blah, blah. Yes, yes. Repeat after me if this is true. And then the very last thing, and it was an oath. So help me God. Right? Police say when they take testimony, they vow to God. So help me God. Right? You're going to be honest with me. So help me God. Right? And that seems archaic. Some people say, oh, that's vestiges of a bygone era. It's like, no. All of this is predicated upon the fact that there is a God. Right. And so, and we thrived as the fruit. Right. And we are wayward children. Right. Just like the prodigal son, he was still the son of that guy, and that guy wanted him back. Right. So Are
Mhm.
we a Christian nation? I'd say we're probably the prodigal son eating pig slop right now,
Mm.
right? If we are a Christian nation, we're eating pig slop, and we
Right.
have to come to our senses. And what did it take for that guy to come to his senses? The pig slop, right?
Mhm.
He had to come
Mhm.
all the way down, and where are we now,
Mhm.
right? Feels
Mhm.
like we're eating pig slop. So I'm always the optimist, and I want to harken back to something you said earlier. Um, you referenced the verse, and I don't remember exactly where it is. Maybe you do, but you said His government, God's government. There
Mhm.
there shall be no end. Do you remember where that is?
I believe it's in Isaiah, but let me
I
look it
think it
up.
is. You're good. I'm like, as soon as you said, I'm like, yeah, I think it is too. Yeah, look it up and read it. I want you to read it because there's one thing that you left out a word. Let me just say that when you said it, you left
Oh,
out a
I'm
word.
not surprised. I'm not
That's an
surprised I left out a word. Oh, you know what? My, Bible app is not working very well.
well,
It's
let
not
me just.
bringing up anything.
It is well.
And, I'm typing in the word government and doing a search. There we go. Now it is. Let me see here.
We got 4 minutes. We can get to this.
You're right. Ah, you're
All
right.
right. Yeah.
Isaiah 9:7. Let me just go there.
9:7. Isaiah 9:7.
Mhm, mhm. And we could back up to the more famous verse 6. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there shall be no end. Upon the throne, whoops, I touched something and went
Mm.
somewhere I didn't mean to. Ah, shoot, I just lost it.
Well, they can go read it. So that's Isaiah what?
Yeah. Isaiah,
I
hold
said
on.
it already. I forget.
Isaiah 9:7. Of the increase of his government and of peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from henceforth, even forever. The
Hmm.
zeal of Jehovah of hosts will perform this.
Well, this ties in perfectly with the Great Commission as we were talking about, right? It's like on
Mhm.
of the increase. And so the government's on his shoulders. That's Jesus saying, all authority has been given to me, right?
Right.
That
Right.
prophecy in Isaiah is, the Christmas story. It's the Christmas prophecy of the king, right? He is
Mhm.
born a king. Oh, he's a king. What's that mean? He has a kingdom. He's ruling, right? He comes and
Mhm.
demonstrates, hey, I created all this. I'm the God of all creation. I'm the one who did it all. Here I am. Hello. And if you pay attention to me, you will rule and reign with me. That's what he's telling his
Right.
disciples, right?
Right.
I am the king and it's my government. And so it's
Mhm.
not just that one day he's going to come back and there will be no end once he comes back. It says
Mhm.
of the increase of his
Right.
government. It's a
Right.
process that began when he came, right?
Right.
And it is growing. Christians occupy more, uh, and I like to say this to kind of put it in perspective is if you take humanity and you break it into categories or groups, right? Tribalism or whatever. So
Mhm.
humanity, 8 billion people. And then if you break it down into gender, right? It's like 4
Mhm.
billion and 4 billion, right? Those are the biggest
Mhm.
categories. There's human women, human men. What's the next biggest category? Well, you break it down. It's not nationality, right? Because, well, you
Mhm.
could say China has how many, right? China has 2 billion or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's
Something.
actually the next biggest category is Christian. 2.4
Right.
billion people
Right.
affiliate or positively self-identify, right,
Mhm.
as Christian. Well, that back when Jesus said these things, there were only a couple hundred, right? A
Right.
couple hundred, right?
Right.
Maybe that followed him
Right.
around. Right? A couple hundred that
Yeah.
believed. There was a couple hundred. Now there's 2.4 billion of the increase of his government. There
Mhm.
shall be no end. Right. And
Mhm.
so, are we a Christian nation? Well, we have been. And
Mhm.
Armenia still say we're the first Christian nation, right? And they've strayed, just like Israel strayed. And that
Mhm.
old covenant came to an end in 70 AD. And now there's a new covenant. And of the increase, there should be no end. Now, I don't know if we've answered the question or not, but it's certainly been thought provoking. Nina, I'll give you the
I
last.
would, well, I would go back and, argue just one point, and that is you said it began when he came. No. It began even before that, because from the foundation of the world, he was slain from the foundation of the world, and um, prepare ye the way of the Lord. Even before God had already given him the authority, even before God had already was
Yes.
paving the way for him, for his government. So, and
And
it's
then he sat
continuing.
down, and then he sat down on the throne.
Yes,
All
yes,
right,
and it
we're over
continues
time.
even now.
Nina, we're gonna have to pick this conversation up next time. This is really
Yeah,
good. Yeah,
yeah.
we'll stick with this. Good to see you, Nina.
Thank
Say
you.
he
Good to
say
see
he
you too, Michael.
say hello to anybody in Alabama that I may know. I don't know anybody. I know you in
I'll
Alabama.
do that. I'll do that. And if I may leave everyone with one last word, be of good courage. Our God does have all authority, and he is with us, and we are not alone.
Amen.
Bye, everyone.